Here we are in Karen Tepe in southern Turkey, which is a stone's throw from where Abraham was catapulted into the fiery pit, which then transformed into water. But over here, I'm at the oldest archaeological site, I believe, known to man, in as much as this is the 3,000 years older than Göbekli Tepe, which we've just visited. And this extraordinary place, just been unearthed very recently, not dissimilar to Göbekli Tepe, but apparently a great deal more complex in some ways. Strangest landscape. The stones are kind of pinkish hue, and where we're staying at this beautiful 1,000-year-old little citadel, about an hour and a half from here in the desert, made out of limestone, 1,000-year-old limestone, which when it was quarried was soft and white, chalky, easy to carve, and then as it oxidizes becomes set almost like a granite. But take a look here. You can see that kind of pinkish, ruddy color. The landscape, very biblical. The land where Moses fled to after the Pharaoh had chased him out of Egypt. This was the land that he came to eventually and settled, and was a farmer in this area. Isn't that extraordinary? Quite beautiful in its way. This seems to be the highest point at Karen Tepe, and it looks like it's a cairn of sorts. I'll find out a little bit more about what that is. The extraordinary thing about this ancient biblical landscape is that it's the oldest known sort of record of a civilization that we're discovering here, 13,000 to 15,000 years ago. Consider that the Sumerian civilization, 4000 BC more or less, hitherto has been acknowledged by academia as being the oldest kind of recorded civilization. Well, it just seems like the more we play this game of time, the more it eludes us. Who knows? One rather suspects that there are other places in this world that are millions of years old, many hundreds of thousands of years old, including civilizational vestiges and remains. I guess that's the wonderful thing about revelation about where we're at, is nobody knows a fucking thing. That's the truth of the matter. All the governments and ministries of, archaeology and anthropology pouncing around pretending as though we have the faintest fucking idea about anything, which we don't. 0 point of civilization. Right there. Right there. That's the 0 point. This is entering to the Lion's Gate. This is entering to the Lion's Gate. And this, my friends, is from the very top of the Lion's Gate, the land of Nebuchadnezzar, the place of the gods. This is it. Well, this has to be one of the most extraordinary places in the world. It's taken pretty much all day to get here and a hell of a long time to climb to the top. But this is the mound of the gods, the mountain of the gods, Nemrut in Turkey. The most extraordinary thing, I've had a bird accompanying all the way up and all the way down. He's on a rock behind me. You can hardly see him. I'll try and get some footage of him. But it's the most extraordinary thing because this bird is the only living creature I've seen pretty much all day. If you can see here, this is biblical, and it is biblical. This is the land of Jacob and Abraham and what have you. And behind me is the tumulus. There you go, the highest point. It's what I've just come down from. And it's billions and billions and billions and billions of shale stone, which were purportedly put there by man 2,500 years ago. I somehow doubt it because it's not possible to my mind. And these extraordinary effigies and totems, of course, which this place is very famous for. And standing here, it really is the top of the world. It's just extraordinary. I once saw, look, my bird is still there on the rock behind me. I once saw, can you see him? Can you see him over there? I'll see if I can get a close-up. But I once saw a valley as extraordinary as this in Arusha in Tanzania, actually where my mother grew up as a child. And I visited that a few years ago. But not since then have I seen such an extraordinary kind of biblical valley. I don't know if you can see it. The light is not carrying too far into the distance, but there is a lake, a vast lake. It looks like the sea over there. And it's just too precious. Not a sound. Nothing stirs here. Absolute stillness. Absolute stillness. My bird is still on the rock. I can't believe it. It's too extraordinary. In any event, I'm feeling super energized. This rock is kind of paramagnetic, dielectric. I'm going to ask Dan Winter and other geniuses to study it. Carrying a few pieces, of course, back with me. But it's got silica, because it's got kind of diamantine silica to it. When you study the rock in the light, it's got billions of little glimmering sparkles. But at the same time, it's, God knows what it is, but it comprises this extraordinary mountain of the gods. You have to go back to the time of King Nebuchadnezzar and beyond to get a kind of grip on the story behind this space. But hey, I'm here and trying to share this experience with you as best as possible. It's just too magnificent. All right, friends, over and out. So we just dismounted these beautiful horses. Christ knows how they got up here, but we managed to somehow. These are the extraordinary peaks and formations outside Cappadocia. Well, it is Cappadocia, and not forgetting, of course, that Cappadocia, it turns out, was the biggest province of the entire Roman Empire. And that's a rather staggering thought, but there you have it. And this is the place where Alexander the Great also sent his armies and subjugated the locals, planted his prefect here, and peace reigned until the end of Alexander's life, which wasn't, let's face it, a very long life at all. That's about the fourth century. And this place absolutely reeks of biblical history. I mean, like I said, the land of Abraham and Jacob and Moses. Just the most extraordinary place. I don't know if you can see these formations here in the valley. Have a look there. Boom, 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 boom. It's incredibly steep down there. Like I said, these incredible horses managed somehow to take us up. And then, of course, when you look at these formations as well, and you consider stories about mountains, old forests and mushrooms, shrooms, large 50-meter, 100-meter, 200-meter high mushrooms. It's very hard to know what the truth is of these matters. But I'll tell you what, when you look at this landscape, it very much feels as though this could have been a sort of pre-Diluvian or whatever forest of sorts. And, I remember Dr. Brian O'Leary, the Apollo 17 or something mission leader, NASA astronaut scientist, who was a beloved friend of mine and died a few years ago. Not before I got him to the UN to have some seminal meetings and speak truth to power. His whole thing was disclosure, having been a astronaut scientist with NASA and intended to lead the mission to Mars, if you remember. I think it was the 1970s when Congress vetoed the budget and the Mars mission was scrapped or aborted by NASA. Well, that was the story. In any event, point is that he was pissed off, Dr. Brian O'Leary, because he believed that his entire career had been, in a sense, co-opted by Babylonians who did have another agenda, the secret space program, and that they were never intending to send us to Mars and all the rest of it. In any event, in his later years, he became a real kind of truth merchant and a bit of a Achilles heel to the NASA establishment. And they threatened him on a number of occasions. I could name the names of the people who were sent to threaten him. I know these sons of bitches. I've tracked them over the years myself, and perhaps at some point I will.
But for sure, Brian, they tried to kill Brian on one particular occasion. And at some point I will tell that story because it's worthy of being told. And in any event, the point I'm trying to get to here is taking into consideration these extraordinary peak formations, right? And Brian was the one who told me when he came to my home, but must have been 3 or 4 years before he died. He spent a few days with me, and he told me that he had been involved with the Japanese space program when the Japanese space program was jointly funding the Saturn probe mission with NASA, with the US government. And the live images that were coming back on the feeds to the Japanese space program high command staggered them when they saw what was actually taking place in deep space, the images coming back from the Saturn probe. And they felt that the world needed to know about this. So the Japanese were essentially on the verge of disclosure at that time. You'll have to check the references to get the dates. I can't remember. But the point is, the Americans said, no fucking way is the world going to know about what we're seeing. Now, the question is this. What did the Saturn probe mission see? What were the images being sent back to Earth at that time? Well, according to Dr. Brian O'Leary, and according to the images that I then saw, UFOs, or alien craft, 200 miles long, mining the rings of Saturn. Because apparently many off-world intelligences do that. They terraform worlds, and they have huge craft that are thousands, hundreds of kilometers, operating at a scale we can only begin to imagine in sci-fi today. But the fact of the matter is that it's quite possible that huge craft of hundreds of kilometers or thousands of kilometers long did at some point come and mine and deforest Earth when the oxygen levels were vastly different to today, and when by best accounts the atmosphere was a great deal higher, and giants roamed the surface of the Earth, and pre-dinosaur even, arguably, 65 million years ago, 200 million years ago. We can only guess at this stuff. But the point is, I've got no issue with looking at incredible formations like this and thinking, well, perhaps this was deforested by alien craft, or these are the excavation remnants of mining excavations and extraordinary events that occurred millions and millions of years ago. I think we need to, the point being, of course, that we need to be open to these possibilities because, well, we know that the Sabbateans who've controlled academia and have controlled the Vatican complex, the Vatican Library, and all of the kind of royal geographical societies and the portals of learning. Oh, Christ, my horse is pissing on my foot. I have to step back a little bit. But the point being, we know how academia has been utterly, utterly corrupted. And the true telling of who we are and what we are and even what our planet is all about has been lost to us. I rather suspect that at this great time of revelation, this stuff is going to surface, and I think it's going to happen in the next 2 or 3 years. I think by the year 2030, to be sure, we're going to be inhabiting a very, very different world with a very different understanding of who we are, where we come from. Look at my beautiful horse here. Look at this sweet thing. Look at this darling thing. All right. Well, that's us. Wish me luck. We have to somehow get to the bottom of this valley again, and I'll bid you adieu.